Afternoon, guys. Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. Thought we'd continue our series on bulletproof bushcraft on a budget and go to combustion. I'm going to show you some natural things that you can collect to help make your fire kit more bulletproof. And you should always have possum mentality when you're walking through the woods. And all the resources that I'm going to show you today are going to be within a square mile. So if you're on a hike or a scout, you're out walking around, these are things that you need to look for to collect. And we're also going to talk about what I think you should hang on to in your kit or keep in your kit for ignition. Very, very cheap, very, very simple. Everybody knows cedar bark is a good bird nest material. But this cedar has been rubbed hard by a buck during the rut. And now, because the sap's running in it, it's got a lot of sap in this area where the bark's been rubbed off. So all this bark beside it, and you can see it, and you can feel it, is going to be very sappy. And if you scrape that off with your knife and smell it, it smells like fatwood. It smells like pitchwood. So even down to the white, you can smell that. If you get this dry stuff that's on the edges right here and scrape that down, and you can smell that turpentine smell in there, that stuff's going to light up and give you extended burn over just what cedar bark would give you, because it's got that resin in it from that wound on the tree. So this stuff right here is A-grade material to collect and put in your kit because of all those resins. And you can, it just smells like turpentine, and that's what you want right there. That stuff's going to light up and take a spark off a ferro rod in a heartbeat, even in damp weather. Okay guys, this is a pine tree and it's been injured right here, and all of this stuff is going to be pine sap, and you can see how gooey that is. And that stuff is the best fire starting material or extending material, great for first aid. But as long as we're on the fire starting part of this and bulletproof methods, this is it. Now again, I'm not going to take the whole resource. I'm just going to take this much, which is a nice big giant wad, put this in my fire kit, and it ain't going to go bad like this. But that ball right there would probably burn for 45 minutes. Okay guys, still talking about pine real quick here. This is a pine that's been snapped off up here. It looks like it's been cut off here. It's probably hanging off into the trail and it was cut off. But if you look at this piece right here and you see how dark yellow that is, that's fatwood. That's where the resins, just like I showed you on that other pine, have settled into that. And you can feel the thickness of that when you cut into it. If you pull that out of there, and you can see that yellow, and if you smell it, it's going to smell like turpentine. Okay, there's fatwood in that for sure. All that thick yellow right there is fatwood. That stuff will take a spark. If you grind it up small enough, it makes great feather sticks, just like that. Put a cigarette lighter to that, it'll go right up. Pine is probably the king of the eastern woodlands as far as wet weather fire goes. That and one other tree, and I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. But all that yellow is fatwood in there. So you could probably cut into this, and there's probably more down in here because the sap settles to the bottom of the stump when the tree dies. So if you find a down pine somewhere and you get to the stump, you're going to find a lot of fatwood in it. But anywhere that a root connects to the tree on a pine, there's going to be some pitch or some fat in that area where the saps run down into that crotch. Cut that out and you're going to find some fatwood. Take a lighter here real quick, and you see how that just lights right up like a candle. Okay? And that black smoke coming off of it tells you that's fatwood. That's resin burning, that black. Okay? Okay guys, we talked about the strangler vine in other videos, and this is just a giant example of it hanging here, and you can see all this shredding bark hanging in the wind. And this stuff is fantastic bird nest material, very dry, goes up really easy. All you got to do is just walk through here, collect enough of it to make a bird nest, you're good to go. I mean, it's there for the taking. It's all over the place out here. Make yourself a bird nest out of this. Highly combustible with an ember, created by a magnifying glass with false tinder fungus, something like that, set on a bet. Okay guys, this is river birch. As you can see, there's water around it, but this stuff right here is fantastic fire tinder. All you got to do is take it off, and it doesn't peel off in sheets as good as white birch or yellow birch up in New England, but it still has betula in it, which is a highly volatile oil, and it still burns really, really, really good. There's nothing wrong with collecting this stuff up and keeping it in your tinder container. Okay guys, this is a cattail. You can char cattail if it's not busted open like this. It makes a very good coal or an ember. It can be ignited in a lot of ways. When it's already busted up like this, it's highly combustible with a ferro rod, but it's a flash. It goes up very quickly and goes out very quickly. So you need something with this that's highly combustible, like some of the other tinder sources we talked about. But there's no way that I would go anywhere where I saw a cattail head and pass it up. I'll just compress it in my hand as best I can and put that in my fire can. Okay guys, this really bone white looking tree right here is deadfall from a tulip poplar, and they're really good at dropping branches. If you find a tree with a smooth mottle colored bark that's very tall and doesn't have very many limbs until it's about 13, 14 feet in the air, that's probably a tulip poplar. And if you find this bark, you can see how it's shredding off of here. This tulip poplar bark is probably the king of sting when it comes to making, as my buddy Tony Daniel would say, the world's greatest bird nest. Okay, so we're definitely going to take some of this off here, especially if it's dry. Also, this tulip poplar makes great cordage, especially if the bark is green, like off of a live tree. Makes some of the strongest cordage in eastern woodlands. And it's probably the best eastern woodland tree next to cottonwood for making bow drill fire sets. So we're going to go ahead and take some of this bark. Again, stick it in our fire tin so we have it. Collecting resources as we go. Possum mentality. Okay guys, so I'm carrying most of the components of my fire kit in a redundant container. And we went around today and collected some stuff up. And we've got some tulip poplar bark, and we've got some cattail, we've got some strangler vine, we've got some birch bark in there, and those are all great. And we've got some pine pitch or pine sap in there, pine sap. All right, a pine sap is a natural accelerant. The resins in a pine tree are a natural accelerant, very much like betula, the volatile oils in birch. And there's a difference between accelerants and fuels that you really need to understand for fire. Okay, a fuel is something that will burn once you give it open flame. An accelerant is something that will combust from the fumes. In other words, if I put a hot spark in the fumes, it'll combust. Gasoline is an accelerant. Vaseline is a fuel. So you need to understand that. This is a piece of horseshoe fungus or false tinder fungus. I didn't show you an example of this out in the woods today because I was having trouble finding one in that square mile area. This is a piece that I've had in my kit for a while, but it basically looks like a horseshoe growing on the side of a tree. If you look up, it looks like a half a plate. If you look at it from the bottom or from the top, it looks like a horseshoe on the tree. Very, very good as a dust or as charred material. So, fat wood, we talked about that as well. So let's talk about combustion. To me, there's only 3 things that you need to carry in your kit to cover all of your combustion needs. And it's very simple. And it's very cheap. The very first one is a Bic lighter. Alright? Bic lighters cost almost nothing. If you really want to bomb-proof this thing and make sure that it stays dry no matter what, so as long as your hands are dry and it's not too windy, you can light flame to give you instant gratification, take a child's balloon, not a condom, a balloon. They're thicker. Put this inside the balloon and tie a knot in it. Put that in your kit. It's going to be waterproof no matter what then until you break it open. I have an Altoids tin that's got some lamp wick in it for charring, a char tin, some steel wool, quadruple lot steel wool. So far we got next to nothing in money here. All right. The other two things that I carry in my kit is a cheapy ferrocerium rod, and this one's a $5 ferrocerium rod that I pulled the handle off of because they never stay on anyway, and wrapped it in duct tape. So now I have that as an extender because duct tape is flammable, and I have a good handle for holding on to my ferrocerium rod. What's important with these is that you have a good striking device. That old hickory butcher knife is a great striker for a ferrocerium rod. I'll show you that in a minute. Last but not least, a magnifying glass. This one came from a yard sale for $1. It's got a chip in it right here, but it still works great. Solar ignition is the best ignition source you can get, in my opinion, because it expends no resources. If you're trying to conserve resources, you don't want to be using things you don't have to. Why would I want to strike that lighter up and hold that button down to hold that flame and waste fuel if I can use the sun? Okay? Same thing with the ferrocerium rod. Even though that thing's going to last for a long, long time, you know, 20,000 strikes or whatever it is they say, you know, if it takes you 5 to 10 strikes every time you try to start a fire, you're going to wear that thing out. If I'm looking in the long term, I want to use the least amount of resources possible to start my fire. So if I got a sunny day, I'm using solar ignition. So we got a $5 ferro rod, a 25-cent magnifying glass, and a $1 lighter. Pretty simple stuff there, guys. Pine sap, like I said, is a natural accelerant. I'm going to show you how that works. It's the only natural waterproof accelerant there is, and that is the basis of Surefire, is to have something that's waterproof and combustible as an accelerant. If you smell it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because it smells just like turpentine. So we have our little resource packet here that we collected today, and I'm not even going to try to get fancy with this because I know I don't have to. I'm just going to shred this thing up a little bit, put my cedar bark down toward the middle, get this cattail that I know is very highly combustible up toward the front, pull some of this cattail fluff into the middle because I know it's going to spark right up. And as long as I keep it inside my tin, it's going to be dry. I don't even want to use near all of this pine pitch, so I'm just going to break a small chunk of it off, put the rest of it back in my tin, and I'm just going to open that stuff up and smear it with some cattail, just like this, because I know once that cattail hits it, it's going to be on fire. Alright? Then it's as simple as pulling out my little ferrocerium rod I got here. And again, you know, I should be clearing out a spot to build this fire and all of that, but I'm going to put it right out anyway, so I'm not worried about it. And I've got water with me. So I'll clear a little bit of an area right here where I'm going to put the bird nest. I want my most combustible material right where my sparks are going to go, and that's my cattail. Pull out my butcher knife. Done deal. Just with materials that we collected today and nothing else. And you can see what the burn time is on that. I haven't added any kindling or anything to it, and I've still got plenty of flame there. Okay guys, well, I've been sitting here for almost 10 minutes and I haven't added a single stick and the thing is still burning. That's what I call bulletproof bushcraft on a budget. $5 ferro rod, 10 cents worth of duct tape around it, 25-cent magnifying glass, $1 lighter, natural collection methods, long-term sustainable flame without adding one stick. Appreciate you guys joining me for this video. I thank you for everything you do for me, for my school, for my family, for all my affiliates and my friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys.